Today's episode is brought to you by Proud Wolves. It is Proud Wolves' mission to build stronger local communities by using global systems. Our main focus is the integration of children in the local community to boost their sense of purpose and belonging and reduce mental health issues and suicide rates. We want to make sure that children all over the world have free access to cultural activities and sport. Proud Wolves helps organizations to change their income models and stops them relying on membership fees for children. Find Proud Wolves on Google for more information. Now, get ready for your All-NBA Team of the Week. Goeiedag, enchantée, and welcome to this week's episode of A24 Presents All-NBA Team of the Week. We have lost Stephen Curry to a foot injury after rolling around with Marcus Smart. A big blow for the Warriors, who will likely struggle to hold on to third spot in the West. Cat threw down 60 points against the Spurs, followed by Kyrie the next day against Orlando. LeBron is only 19 points removed from Karl Malone's second spot on the all-time leading scorers list, with a game coming up against the Wizards. Most teams are heading into their last 10 games of the season. Let the jockeying for positions begin. This week, we step away from focusing on 5 great players and focus on 5 great storylines instead that are playing up around the league. Get ready for your All-NBA Team of the Week. Before we move on, I'd like to talk to you about A24. A24 is created by Proud Wolves with the intention to provide children with an opportunity to learn and play basketball at their own pace and completely free. We have created different courses which are available on the website to improve their basketball skills. But our real mission is to help disadvantaged children by building and upgrading basketball courts around the world and supply them with basketball gear to play with. Come and find our website and grab a t-shirt to support the course. Now, let's get back to the show.
Pick one!
Our first pick of the week is the MVP race. Right now, the MVP race is a 3-legged race between Nikola Jokic, Giannis Antetokounmpo and Joel Embiid. But that doesn't mean that certain players can't throw their head in the ring towards the end of the competition. Off the top of my head, I'm thinking of Luka Doncic, if he can lead Dallas to top 3 finished in the West. Or Jason Tatum, if he can do the unthinkable and push Boston to the top of the East. Maybe even Kevin Durant, if Brooklyn can avoid the playing games. All these scenarios are unlikely, that's why these guys will only be considered if they actually make it happen. But until then, we can focus on Jokic, Giannis and Embiid. All 3 have a fair claim to the title because all 3 are having exceptional seasons. Giannis is putting up better numbers than in the 2 years he won the MVP. Jokic is playing better than last year and has to lead his team to any wins. And Embiid is just dominating teams around the league. He has improved season after season after season and has now arrived at the top of the league, making his claim on a first MVP title. Because these guys are so close together, it is pretty much impossible to make an objective decision. That's when we start to go into narratives around these players. And the guy with the best narrative will win the MVP. It's as simple as that. 3 players, 3 narratives. For Jokic, the narrative is clear. He has absolutely no help this season. Denver can't count on the other 2 big names, Jamal Murray and MPJ. Yet, Denver still sits in 6th in the West. Giannis' story is slightly different. Losing Brook Lopez early in the season, he had to adjust his normal playing style and play more on the 5 throughout the season. Middleton and Holiday were in and out during the season and have only recently started playing at their proper levels. Despite all this, the Bucks sit in 2nd in the East, and Giannis is averaging a career high in points per game. Then, finally, Joel Embiid. Obviously, he has had no help from his running mate Ben Simmons all year, and his supporting cast has been disappointing. Joel himself, on the other hand, is leading the league in scoring and has been dominant in most games he has played. Now that he has the help of James Harden, you would imagine that this could only improve his odds. These are the narratives. I have made up my decision. What's your favorite for the MVP?
Pick 2!
Our second pick of the week is the race for playoff seeding in the West. I'm very confident to say that Phoenix has clinched that number 1 spot. With only 11 games left to play, they have 9 games to give before Memphis could catch up. A lot of weird things have happened in the NBA recently, but that will not be one of them. The Grizzlies sit in 2nd, half a game ahead of the Warriors, who have now lost Curry for God knows how long. The Jazz follow 3 games behind them, with the Mavs on their tail, only 1 game behind. Denver completes the top 6, 1.5 games behind the Mavs, and only half a game ahead of the Timberwolves, who are fighting for a spot in the top 6. The Clippers, who sit in 8th, nearly 7 games behind the Wolves, are too far back to be dangerous. Looking at the current positions, and the way the teams are playing, the teams most likely to climb the standings are the Wolves and the Mavericks, with the Warriors and the Jazz most likely to drop. The Grizzlies are not as incredible anymore as earlier in the season, but they're still winning, and at this stage of the competition, I would not want to bet against Nikola Jokic, but I do see the Nuggets drop to 7th. The Warriors might be in for a tough final 12 games. Even though Curry has not been playing that great lately, not having him at all will hurt. And the Jazz are simply not the same team as in previous years. Mitchell is very good, but not great, and Rudy Gobert seems to struggle more than usual. It's not that the Jazz are a bad team, they just feel a bit stale. The Timberwolves are playing an incredible season. Cat has unleashed himself from whatever shackles he was holding him back in the past. Anthony Edwards is Kobe reincarnated, and Russell is showing flashes of a top 2 pick. Jared Vanderbilt has turned into a potential defensive player of the year, and Patrick Beverley has them all riled up. In Dallas, they have gone full Luka since the KP trade, and adding Spencer Dinwiddie has been incredible for them. There's still something missing, but the Mavs are really fun to watch right now. So based on all of that, we can say that Phoenix will take out the number 1 spot, and likely will play the first round against one of the LA teams. Memphis will take the 2nd spot, incredible, and will most likely have to play Denver. Not a great outcome, especially if the Nuggets can recover Murray and or MPJ. I can see the Mavs jump to 3rd and take on the Wolves in 6th. The Warriors and the Jazz will verge each other as the number 4 and 5. This could give us some very special series in the first round, especially if the Clippers can bring back Kawhi and PG for a series against CP, Booker and the Suns. I wouldn't be surprised to see any scenario happen, even a massive upset where the top 4 is eliminated in the first round. These last 3 weeks will be very important for all these teams and very exciting to watch for all of us.
Pick 3.
Our third pick of the week is that number 7 spot in the East. It currently belongs to the Raptors, but they are keen to pass it on to the Cavs or the Bulls. All 3 teams are 12 games away from the end of their regular season. According to Tankathon, the Bulls have the most difficult schedule left of these 3 teams. Toronto sit in the middle, and the Cavs have the easiest schedule, but the fun part is that these teams still play each other. The Raptors and the Bulls play each other this week in Chicago, and later in the week, the Bulls travel to Ohio to meet with the Cavs. In between those games, the Cavs and the Raptors meet each other in Toronto. We'll know a whole lot more once these games are done. All 3 teams are strong enough to skip the playing games and make it straight into the playoffs, but one of them will need to fall back to 7th. And even though all 3 teams are strong enough to upset a top 4 seed, they're all petrified of what is waiting for them in the play-in series. First off, you can expect the 7th seed to verse the Brooklyn Nets for that 7th playoff spot. But because that's an away game for Brooklyn, you can expect Kyrie to play. Only Toronto doesn't have to fear Kyrie because he's not allowed to play in Canada either. If you lose that game, you need to play a do-or-die game against the winner of the Hornets in Atlanta. And if Trae Young can get fired up for the playing games, that could be a lethal game if you have to play Atlanta for that last spot in the playoffs. I don't expect that either the Bulls, Cavs or Raptors would be willing to risk it in the playing games on purpose. But that's looking down, and winners only look up, right? So let's look up. We can anticipate some shuffling among the top 4 seeds, but as it stands right now, Miami will take on the 2nd team coming out of the playing games. Philly will take on the 1st team out of the play-in. The Bucks will meet the Cavs, and Boston will battle it out with the Bulls. I believe that the Heat and the Sixers are the easiest teams to upset in that first round. Jimmy Butler is not that guy this year, and the Heat will need him to be in the playoffs. He could be saving it for the playoffs because the Heat don't need him right now. But who knows? If Butler is not playing as well as in the last few years, the Heat will struggle in the playoffs. And the Sixers are just a big question mark. How will the Harden and Embiid experiment pan out? I expect it to go further than 1 round, but you just never know. So if those are the teams to be aiming for, the 7th spot on the ladder all of a sudden doesn't seem so bad.
Pick 4.
Our 4th pick of the week is the advantage of playing less games. We've been listening to this debate for a very long time, and really the only advantage to playing 82 games in the regular season is financial. Franchises have 41 home games. That's 41 opportunities to make plenty of money. More games also means more money in a TV deal. However, that argument is easily refuted by stating that less games means higher stakes in every game and potentially more people watching. And that is what it all comes down to, people that are watching. We've clearly evolved to a league where superstars sit out games that don't mean as much. A trip to Oklahoma City? Ooh, I think I have some hamstring tightness. A back-to-back in New York and Orlando? Oh no, I rolled my ankle in the first game. You see where I'm going with this? Less games means that every game carries more weight in the standings. More important games means more competition, means more fans, means more money. And that's just the financial side. Now, let's look at the actual player performance. This season, we have a real-life sample we can watch when it comes to playing less games. Kyrie Irving. I'm not going to touch on the reason why he's playing fewer games and whether or not he should be allowed to play more games. These decisions have been made by people smarter than me and for reasons much bigger than basketball. I just look at how this can influence the league in a positive way, and that's using this situation as an argument to have players play less games. Kyrie has only played 19 games over the course of the season and has been on fire in almost all of those. Especially now that we're approaching the end of the season and a lot of teams are resting their important players whenever they can, or the opposite, squeezing every last dribble out of their stars for positioning and ruining their playoff chances. Kyrie is putting up a show. He's averaging nearly 38 points per game in his last 5 games, or over 30 in his last 10. Keep in mind that he played some of those 10 games with Harden and wasn't able to do exactly what he wanted. Less games means players are in better shape towards the end of the season and don't need to rest as much or sacrifice their playoff run in the final stretch of the season. My suggestion is to give every team a home and an away game. With 30 teams in the league, that means you're playing 58 games. And even though the 2 arguments I brought up earlier, aimed at owners and players, should be enough to grease the wheels to start to see some change, I will give you 2 more arguments to put this in place, this time aimed at Commissioner Adam Silver. Silver wants to expand the league and add more franchises. With single home and away games, you can easily add 2, 3, or even 4 teams. Less games could mean increased travel time, so why not add more franchises in different countries? And lastly, if you're worried that the owners will not like having less than 41 home games, you have the room to add in a mid-season tournament. I have a template of 22 games for the 2 best teams that will add 13 home games to the tally for the best team in that tournament. That is an extra home game in the season for the best team in comparison to now, while playing 2 games less overall. Talk about a win-win-win situation. Sorry, you said you wanted to see this template? I'll post it on our socials.
Pick 5.
Our 5th pick of the week are the stars of the future. Every year we sit down to watch March Madness, and this year is no different. We all have our brackets in hand and pray our teams make it through to the next round. Some of you hope to see plenty of Cinderella stories, others are banking on the stars of tomorrow to get it done. We have already seen some upsets. By the time of writing today's show, Kentucky has already been kicked out of the tournament in the first round against St. Peter's. There's always one. March Madness brings so much joy to basketball fans in the US and around the world because even here in Australia, us basketball freaks are glued to the TV over the next few weeks. I like watching to get an idea of what the NBA draft prospects look like. I rarely have the time to dive into college basketball. This yearly tournament is the moment for me to find out who is capable of performing on the highest stage. I have my eyes on 4 guys, and people following college basketball won't be surprised. The names are Chet Holmgren from Gonzaga. This kid is exceptional, tall and skinny with a 7'5" wingspan and can play in the post or on the perimeter. Jabari Smith from Auburn, who's already strong on both ends on the floor. There's Paolo Banchero from Duke. The Blue Devils forward has some potential, a lot of potential, but whoever drafts him will need to be patient with him. And lastly, Jaden Ivey from Purdue, a smallish score-first guard who has the potential to take over games. A bit like Cole Anthony, but slightly taller. Another benefit of March Madness is that other players, who are a bit lower on people's draft board, can show off their skills and climb a few spots. A bad run in the NCAA tournament can make some guys tumble as well. Very stressful for those kids, but very entertaining for us. And just the fact that I can watch game after game after game for 2 weeks straight is monumental. Bring it on! This was our All-NBA Team of the Week. Please share the podcast and give us 5 stars. If you have any questions, contact us on a24office@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. We will talk to you next week. Ballers out.